When a man pulls away, your first instinct might be to chase, to question, to demand answers. But understand this, chasing someone who has already turned their back on you is not strength, it is submission. The very act of ignoring him, of holding your silence, is not passivity, it is power. Because silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say, it means you refuse to speak into a void. What happens when you ignore him? He's forced to feel the weight of his own withdrawal. A man who pulls away expects pursuit. He expects you to validate his worth, to stabilize his uncertainty, to reassure his ego. But when you do not move, when you refuse to feed his escape with your desperation, the silence becomes a mirror. He sees himself, uncovered, unsupported, confronted with the truth that your world does not orbit around him. This is the moment where your strength takes form. Because in ignoring him, you are not rejecting love. You are rejecting the dysfunction of imbalance. You are saying, I will not chase someone who does not choose me with clarity. That statement, even when never spoken, echoes louder than any words. Now consider what this does to him. A man pulls away often because he doubts his place, he doubts his own capacity, or he seeks control in distance. But when you ignore, you do not fight for that control. You give it to him fully, and in that act you remove yourself from the game. Suddenly, the power he thought he had collapses, because control only matters if someone resists it. But you don't resist, you detach. And detachment is far heavier than confrontation. He begins to wonder, why isn't she running after me? Why isn't she proving herself? Why is she silent? That silence gnaws at him. It disrupts the comfort he expected. It forces him to realize that you are not waiting, you are not begging, you are not dependent. And the truth is, nothing unsettles the human ego more than realizing it is not indispensable. Your strength here is not emotional numbness. It is discipline. Discipline to hold the line, to not give in to the impulse of chasing, to not fill the silence with apologies or explanations that were never yours to give. Discipline to endure the discomfort of absence, knowing that absence is the only tool that reveals value. And what about you? What happens to you when you ignore a man who pulled away? You begin to shift the focus inward. His distance grants you space to see yourself clearly, to recognize that your worth was never tied to his recognition, to rebuild your energy, your confidence, your center. Instead of bleeding strength trying to pull him closer, you reclaim strength by standing still. That act of stillness is not weakness. It is the training ground of power. Do not mistake this for a game. Ignoring a man is not about manipulation. It is about refusing to be manipulated. It is about knowing that love is not proven by pursuit, but by mutual presence. If he cannot meet you where you stand, then you will not crawl to where he hides. So, what happens when you ignore a man who pulled away? He's left with himself, and you are left with freedom. He must face the consequences of his withdrawal. While you rise above the chaos it attempted to create, you will see his true nature unfold. If he values you, he will return with clarity. If he does not, he will drift further into silence. Either way, you win, because your silence forced the truth to surface. The greatest lesson is this: power is not in making someone stay. Power is in showing that you will not collapse when they leave. That is the strength of restraint. That is the courage of silence. That is the discipline that turns absence into revelation. So hold the line. Do not chase. Do not beg. Do not shatter your dignity for the sake of temporary closeness. Ignore him not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. In that decision, you do more than reclaim your power. You redefine it. There is a power in silence that most people never learn to wield. We live in a world where noise dominates, where everyone speaks, argues, defends, and explains. Words are thrown like weapons, often not to reveal truth, but to hide it. But silence? Silence strips away the excuses. Silence leaves no defense, no shield, no distraction. It is in silence that the raw truth begins to surface. Think about it. When someone wrongs you, the natural impulse is to explain, to demand, to confront. Yet confrontation often gives them an escape route. Words can be twisted, debated, dismissed. But when you remain silent, when you refuse to participate in the drama, you corner them with something they cannot fight. Stillness. In that stillness, they are left alone with their own conscience, their own choices, their own guilt. Silence becomes a mirror, and mirrors never lie. Silence is not weakness. Weakness is the inability to control your impulses. Weakness is when you let your emotions spill in every direction, hoping someone will understand you, hoping someone will fix what you feel. Silence is the opposite. Silence is mastery. It means you have learned to restrain yourself, to hold your ground, to let the weight of reality press down without your interference. That is strength few possess. When you choose silence, you are no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth. You are no longer trying to force someone to see your value. You are declaring with your restraint, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it to you. That declaration is louder than shouting, more commanding than arguments, more final than tears. It is the kind of message that cuts through illusions because it is delivered not with noise, but with absence. Notice what silence does to people. It unsettles them. It strips away their ability to manipulate through words, charm, or excuses. Someone who thrives on control hates silence because silence means they can't predict you, they can't move you, they can't read you. Silence forces them to face themselves, and many people would rather fight 10 battles than face their own reflection. For you, silence also changes everything. It teaches you patience. It teaches you discipline. It shows you that your emotions do not have to own you. Every time you choose not to respond, every time you choose not to chase, you are building a deeper kind of power, self-mastery. And self-mastery is the foundation of respect, influence, and true freedom. There is also healing in silence. Words often keep pain alive. The more you argue, the more you rehearse your hurt. But silence creates space for your heart to recover. It shifts your focus away from the noise of others and onto the voice within you. It reminds you that not every situation requires your energy. Not every battle deserves your fight. Not every person is worth your explanation. Silence says, I choose me. The truth always rises in silence. When you stop explaining, the reality of the situation becomes undeniable. If someone cares, they will show it without you begging. If someone is guilty, their guilt will reveal itself in their unease. If someone has no intention of valuing you, their lack of action will expose them. Silence accelerates truth by removing all the distractions that words provide. But understand this. Silence is not avoidance. It is not running away. It is deliberate. It is conscious. It is a weapon you use not to destroy, but to protect. Protect your dignity, your peace, your strength. Silence is not about punishing others. It is about preserving yourself. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped explaining yourself to people who never listen? What would happen if you stopped chasing those who pull away? What would happen if, instead of filling the air with words, you let silence do the talking? The answer is simple. You would see truth more clearly. You would see people's intentions more plainly. You would see yourself more powerfully. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is the highest form of it because it speaks not to the surface, but to the soul. It reminds the world that you are not desperate. You are not lost. You are not dependent. You are centered. And centered people do not shout to be heard. They stand in silence and the world leans in. Silence exposes truth more than words ever can. It is the pause that reveals character. It is the stillness that unmasks intention. It is the discipline that transforms pain into strength. And when you learn to hold it, you will see the world differently, not because the noise stopped, but because you did. There is a critical truth you must understand when you decide to step back. The test is never about you. It is about him. Too many people believe that their worth hangs in the balance of someone else's response. They believe that if he pulls away, they must chase to restore what was lost. They believe silence or distance means rejection, and rejection must be fought against. But this is false. When you pull back, the weight of identity shifts, and it is no longer you on trial. It is him. A man's behavior when you withdraw reveals more about his character than 1,000 words ever could. Will he rise to meet the absence, or will he collapse under the space? Will he take initiative, or will he retreat into comfort? These answers expose the truth, not about you, but about him. Because your decision to pull back is not a collapse of your identity, it is a revelation of his. He expects you to chase. He expects you to soothe his doubts, to stabilize his distance, to keep proving yourself as if his pulling away is a command. But the moment you resist that script, when you refuse to beg, refuse to plead, refuse to surrender, you shift the balance of power. Suddenly he must face the silence. Suddenly his identity is exposed. Who is he when you no longer carry the burden of connection? That is the real question. This is where the test begins. A man who values you will feel the pull of absence and step forward with clarity. He will recognize that distance does not strengthen him. It weakens the bond he should be protecting. But a man who only thrives on control will stumble. Without your pursuit, he loses his leverage. Without your effort, he loses the comfort of knowing you will always be there, regardless of his neglect. The silence shakes him because it forces him to choose. And in that choice, his true nature is revealed. And for you, pulling back does not test your identity, it strengthens it. It teaches you that your worth is not dependent on how loudly someone else claps for you. It proves that your value is not determined by pursuit, but by presence. Your silence declares, I am not here to chase you into clarity. If you want me, you step forward. That statement is not made with words. It is made with action, or rather, with the refusal of action. It is the stillness that commands respect. When you pull back, you give him space to reveal whether his feelings are genuine or conditional. You give him the opportunity to show if he can stand as a man who chooses, or if he is only a boy who hides. You no longer shield him from the discomfort of decision. That discomfort is his to carry, not yours. This is not about punishment, it is about perspective. Pulling back is not revenge, it is clarity. It is you saying, I will not overinvest in someone who underinvests in me. That is not cruelty, that is wisdom. Because every moment you chase someone who is retreating, you drain yourself of energy that should be directed toward your own growth. But every moment you hold still, you conserve your power and force the truth into the light. The beauty of this is simple. You cannot lose when you pull back. If he values you, he will come forward and the bond will strengthen. If he does not, he will remain distant and you will be free from wasting energy on someone unwilling to choose you. Either way, your strength remains intact. Either way, his identity, not yours, is exposed. Understand this. A man's retreat does not define your worth. Your reaction defines the power dynamic. If you chase, you confirm his belief that he can withdraw without consequence. If you hold back, you reveal that his absence does not dismantle your identity. That is the greatest test of all for him. When you pull back, you create a silence that cannot be ignored. That silence becomes the stage where his true character performs. Some will step into the light with strength, others will vanish into the shadows. But in both outcomes, the truth surfaces. And truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always liberation. So hold steady, pull back when you must. Do not mistake his withdrawal as a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of his identity. Yours remains unshaken, untouched, untested. The test belongs to him, not to you. There is something most people never understand. Distance is not just absence. Distance is a mirror. When you step back, when you remove your presence, when you refuse to chase, suddenly he is forced to meet himself without your energy to hide behind. And that moment, that silence, that empty space is not neutral. It is heavy. It forces him to confront the weakness he has worked so hard to ignore. A man may pull away thinking he is in control. He believes that retreat gives him power, that withholding gives him leverage. But true control is never measured by how far you can withdraw. True control is revealed when distance exposes what you cannot live without, when you stop feeding him your effort, your attention, your validation. The cracks in his foundation begin to show. Because weakness thrives in distraction. As long as you chase, he doesn't have to question his own choices. As long as you beg for closeness, he never has to wonder about his ability to commit. As long as you pour energy into holding him, he never has to ask himself if he is capable of holding you. But distance removes all the noise. It strips away the excuses. Now he cannot look at you for answers. He must look at himself, and that confrontation is brutal. He begins to feel the weight of absence. He starts to realize that the bond he took for granted is not guaranteed. The comfort he assumed would always be there is gone. The silence presses against him, not because you are punishing him, but because you are no longer carrying what was never yours to carry. His weakness is exposed. His fear of intimacy, his inability to choose, his lack of strength to lead, they all come rushing to the surface in the vacuum you create. Distance is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is not about making him suffer. It is about refusing to suffer for him. And in that refusal, you let reality do the work that words never could. You don't have to argue, plead, or explain. The absence itself delivers the message. If you cannot stand strong in closeness, you will be crushed in distance, but do not misunderstand. Distance is not about manipulation. You are not playing games. You are preserving dignity. You are allowing space for truth to reveal itself. And truth revealed through distance is the most undeniable kind. If he is strong, he will face his weakness, confront it, and grow. If he is weak, he will collapse, hide, and run further. Either way, you win, because the truth is exposed without you exhausting yourself to find it. The real power of distance is what it does for you. When you pull back, you stop pouring into someone who is unsure. You redirect that energy toward yourself, your growth, your purpose, your peace. And in doing so, you remind yourself that you do not need anyone to validate your worth. Your identity is not shaken by someone else's retreat. On the contrary, your willingness to create distance is proof of strength. Distance also creates time. Time for you to see clearly. Time for him to realize what he is losing. Time for truth to take shape without being clouded by constant interaction. In that time, his weakness is tested, and so is his will. Will he step into the discomfort, or will he remain trapped by it? That is his battle, not yours. Understand this. Weakness is never exposed in comfort. Weakness only shows itself in pressure, in silence, in absence. And that is why distance is so powerful. It is pressure disguised as stillness. It is the kind of pressure that cannot be ignored because it forces a decision. He either confronts his weakness and grows, or he succumbs to it and fades. For you, there is only one role. Hold the distance. Do not chase. Do not fill the silence with words he has not earned. Do not rush to relieve the discomfort he needs to face. Let him stand in the vacuum of your absence. Let him feel the weight of what it means to lose your presence. Only then will the truth of his strength or his weakness be revealed. Distance forces him to confront his own weakness. It unmasks the illusions, dismantles the games, and exposes the truth. And once truth is visible, you are free. Because you no longer need to wonder who he is. You will see it plainly in how he responds to the space you created. There is a moment in every relationship where you must decide whether to chase or to hold. Most people believe that chasing proves care, that running after someone who pulls away shows love. But this is an illusion. Chasing is not strength. It is desperation disguised as devotion. True strength is found in restraint, the ability to hold back when your emotions demand you to move forward, the courage to stand still when every impulse in you screams to run. Restraint is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the power to master yourself when circumstances tempt you to lose control. Anyone can chase. Anyone can beg. Anyone can throw words and energy into the void, hoping it will bring someone closer. But it takes a deeper kind of strength to resist that impulse, to remain still, and to let silence carry the weight of truth. When you chase, you hand over power. You declare that the other person determines your direction. You abandon your dignity for proximity, believing that closeness at any cost is better than distance with self-respect. But restraint flips the script. Restraint declares, I will not run after what does not choose me. I will not sacrifice my peace for someone else's confusion. That is not indifference. It is clarity. Consider what happens when you practice restraint. The other person is forced to reveal themselves. If they truly value you, they will step toward you without needing to be pulled. If they do not, they will drift further. Either way, the truth emerges, and truth is always better than living in the fog of constant chasing. Restraint clears the illusion because it places the responsibility back where it belongs, on them, not on you. But restraint is not just about the other person. It is about you. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you grow stronger. You prove to yourself that you are not controlled by impulse, not enslaved by fear, not desperate for validation. You prove that you can carry the discomfort of silence without collapsing. And this kind of inner strength builds something no one can take away from you: self-respect. Restraint is the training ground of greatness. Look at the strongest people in history. They did not achieve power by reacting to every emotion, by running after every fleeting desire. They built strength through patience, through discipline, through the ability to wait. Restraint is the foundation of mastery, whether in leadership, relationships, or life. Now, think about what chasing really does. It feeds the illusion of control, but in reality, it hands control away. The more you chase, the more he withdraws. The more you explain, the less he listens. The more you plead, the less he respects, because chasing does not inspire closeness. It erodes attraction. It signals fear. It tells the other person that you do not believe in your own value, so you must convince them. But restraint communicates the opposite. Restraint says, I know my worth. I don't need to prove it. You either recognize it or you lose it. That message carries more weight than 1,000 words. Restraint also protects you from self-betrayal. Every time you chase, you compromise your dignity. You lower your standards for the sake of temporary comfort. But every time you hold back, you protect your boundaries. You remind yourself that your value is not negotiable. That act of restraint becomes a shield, guarding your heart from being wasted on someone unworthy of it. And what about him? When you hold back, he must face himself. He cannot rely on your pursuit to soothe his uncertainty. He cannot lean on your effort to cover his indecision. The distance forces him to act or to reveal his inability to act. And in that space, his true character is exposed. This is why restraint is stronger than chasing. Chasing creates illusion. Restraint creates truth. Chasing drains you. Restraint strengthens you. Chasing delays reality. Restraint delivers it. And when you live in truth, you always win, even if the outcome is not what you first desired. Because nothing is more powerful than knowing where you stand and refusing to abandon it. So the next time you feel the urge to chase, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, does this serve my strength or does it betray it? Choose restraint. Choose silence. Choose to let your absence speak louder than your words ever could. Because in that restraint, you not only protect your dignity, you command respect. Your strength lies in restraint, not in chasing. It is in the discipline to stand still when the world tells you to run. It is in the courage to hold back when your heart aches to move forward. It is in the wisdom to know that love is not proven by pursuit, but by presence. And when you master restraint, you no longer fear loss because you finally understand that what is truly yours will never need to be chased.